UFOs land on Earth, and in the secluded corners of the planet, the government tests unidentified flying objects. But do they really have extraterrestrial origins? Some are convinced that these are genuine UFOs. However, the question arises. In a number of cases, eyewitnesses have mistaken secret aircraft for UFOs. This could become the biggest sensation. There is an opinion that the American government possesses 9 alien spacecraft. A person who has seen such an aircraft might well take it for a spaceship. Will we be able to unravel the mystery of interstellar travel by testing these aircraft in flight? A deep rumble resonates in the sky, a pulsating sound as if the heavens are cracking open. But be cautious, not everything is obvious at first glance. Where is the truth? The Discovery Channel will showcase a base that officially does not exist, and an aircraft that also does not exist. One of the witnesses claims that this aircraft was flying at supersonic speed. He also mentions that he worked for the American government and notes that there were a total of 9 flying saucers. Listeners are invited to penetrate into the top-secret world known as Dreamland. Airplanes are often mistaken for UFOs. One of the eyewitnesses, Steve Douglas, observed them even before the emergence of ufologists and stealth hunters. He notes that upon seeing these lights, any aviation expert could determine that it was a B-1 bomber. But for a ufologist eager to see an alien ship, they automatically become the lights of a mothership. In 1992, Steve Douglas filmed Air Force exercises in Roswell, New Mexico. In the twilight, his camera captured a very strange triangular aircraft. He referred the blurry footage to an expert. These frames are mesmerizing, as they show something resembling an unusual airplane, the existence of which the government is trying to deny. Steve emphasizes that the image needs to be made clearer, as it is very intriguing. The footage shows a black aircraft against the dark sky, and due to interference, it almost blends into the background. He demonstrates a processed frame obtained after the so-called cleanup of the shot. Despite this, the interference has hardly diminished, and it becomes very difficult to discern anything. Steve explains that it is not difficult to clean up a shot using a computer. It is enough to upload the frame and edit it electronically. He shows how to delineate the boundaries of an object, but he acknowledges that he has certain assumptions regarding the outcome, and he inadvertently relies on them during the process. In the end, he obtains exactly what he expected, something that can be interpreted as a flying saucer. He does not doubt that this device truly flies, but that does not necessarily mean that it is a spacecraft from another planet or a time machine. Steve suggests that it is actually a strictly classified, low-observable reconnaissance craft built by a government that does not acknowledge its operation. Thus, it is an unidentified flying object by all accounts. Steve also mentions that the film captures the TR-3, known as the Black Manta, which officially does not exist. However, is this really a manta in the sky? Over the past 5 years, descriptions of UFOs have changed. Reports of triangular UFOs have become as frequent as those of traditional flying saucers. Last year, a British Airways flight from Milan was approaching landing at Manchester Airport in the United Kingdom, when suddenly a triangular craft zoomed past the aircraft, just a few meters from its nose. Neither other planes nor ground radar detected this high-speed craft. It was a classic contact. Newspaper headlines reported that an alien spacecraft flew past a passenger airliner, but aviation specialists had been aware of this for a long time. Less than 24 kilometers from this location, an English company was constructing a completely secret prototype of a low observable aircraft. This aircraft had an unusual triangular shape and was considered an unidentified flying object or UFO. Unusual aircraft always attract the attention of the press. Some of them become well known, while others remain mere prototypes. Officially, such UFOs do not exist and operate from bases that also do not exist. In particular, the base of American super-secret craft is hidden at a nuclear test site in Nevada, where nuclear warheads have been tested for decades. It is one of the safest places for adventure seekers, located near Las Vegas, where carefree gamblers are completely unaware of the super-secret world lurking beyond the horizon. Area 51, also known as Groom Lake, has the call sign Dreamland, which translates to Land of Dreams. You will not find Groom Lake in any list of military installations, but this base houses the longest runways in the world and the largest airplane hangar. However, what is located in this hangar is even more secret than the base itself. Officially, the Country of Dreams does not exist, but it attracts so much public attention that there are even maps of it now. Penetrating the area means risking imprisonment without trial, as the guards shoot without warning. It was at Groom Lake, under conditions of absolute secrecy, that the famous reconnaissance aircraft of the Cold War era were based. The CIA's U-2 spy plane first took to the skies right here. Later, hidden behind a veil of secrecy for more than 10 years, an entire family of aircraft was concealed, including the SR-71 Blackbird, which flew faster than any other aircraft in the world. Like the U-2, it was invulnerable until advancements in surface-to-air missile systems rendered it obsolete. Here, the stealth fighter was also tested, which has often been mistaken for a UFO for half a century. The second half of the 1940s was a time of fantastic achievements in aviation. It is hard to imagine now, but at that time a plane without propellers seemed something like a car without an engine. There were even planes without tails, disc-shaped, and with delta wings. People who saw such aircraft might have mistaken them for spacecraft, and those who had no idea about their characteristics considered them something extraterrestrial, assuming they were flying saucers. The objects that became the stars of the first flying saucer sighting were actually aircraft of the flying wing design. Pilot Kenneth Arnold observed delta-winged planes, not discs. After he spotted these objects and landed, Kenneth Arnold spoke with other pilots, and they speculated that it was either an American secret project or some kind of missile or a Soviet aircraft. However, later these objects came to be considered alien ships, as their speed and maneuverability seemed unattainable using earthly materials, and humans could not withstand such G-forces. The United States government did indeed make an attempt to build a flying saucer. Avril Carr seemed to be the most advanced lawnmower in history. The pilot had to wear a protective helmet to prevent grass clippings from flying into his face. It was more of a hovercraft, an experimental device that became the basis for a whole series of outstanding aircraft. At Lockheed Skunk Works, California, generations of top-secret aircraft were built. Today, the parking lot at the facility is still overcrowded despite the fact that official work is nearly complete. However, experts believe that the current projects are insufficient to explain such activity. The production of the Blackbird reconnaissance aircraft has long been discontinued, and the development of the stealth fighter is almost finished. This clearly cannot be the only explanation for the work that continues behind closed doors. Is there any truth to the rumors that new triangular-shaped aircraft are being constructed there? Aviation analysts suspect that the answer may be found in one of the Pentagon documents dated 1985. This mysterious document, codenamed Project Aurora, is mentioned in passing alongside the U-2 and Blackbird reconnaissance aircraft. Since then, there has been no official mention of it, and it is considered non-existent. The project first came to light when air traffic controllers on the West Coast were warned about high-speed objects that might appear on radar screens. They were told that it was a secret program and that they should not panic or share this information with outsiders. The situation changed on June 18, 1992 at 7 in the morning and on 6 other Thursdays in the previous year when coffee cups in Los Angeles began to shake from a series of sonic booms. Calls from concerned residents led John Morey from the United States Geological Survey to initiate an investigation to determine the cause of these punctual earthquakes. He had at his disposal a network of seismic monitoring stations. Maury quickly established that it was a double sonic boom from a supersonic aircraft. He compared the recordings of the booms produced by this aircraft with the recordings of space shuttle landings in Los Angeles and the intercontinental flight of the SR-71 Blackbird, which set a world speed record in 1991. However, the recordings turned out to be completely different. The power and amplitude of the booms were unique. Numerous sonic booms are recorded in Southern California, including those from space shuttles landing at Edwards Air Force Base. Scientists can calculate the direction, speed, and altitude of the object producing the sonic boom if they have enough data. However, in the case of these mysterious booms, the object was apparently flying over the sea, where there are no seismic monitoring stations. Thus, the lack of data did not allow for an accurate assessment of the speed of this object, but it could be confidently stated that it was flying at a speed exceeding the speed of sound. Some meteors can produce similar sonic booms, but Maury does not believe that meteors can appear every Thursday morning. A breakthrough in the investigation occurred when Bill Swidman received a message from a direct observer. This craft could only be Aurora. Swidman wrote several articles about Aurora, in which he presented the accumulated evidence. One of the sources of information was Chris Gibson, one of the best military observers in the world, and a member of the British Royal Corps of Observers. In 1989, when he was working on an oil rig in the North Sea, a colleague called him outside. Gibson describes, "I saw a group of 4 aircraft. The lead was a KC-135 Stratotanker. To its left were 2 F-111 fighter bombers. And trailing behind the Stratotanker was a black triangular craft without wings and tail. It was a perfect triangle, unlike anything I had ever seen before." Gibson notes that this is unusual in itself, as he had undergone special training in the Royal Corps of Observers. "If I did not know what kind of aircraft it was, then it was not in any reference book," he adds. The unusual shape and sonic booms told Bill Swidman a great deal. Imagining the appearance of an aircraft capable of flying at hypersonic speeds, that is, 5, 6, or more times the speed of sound, it becomes evident that certain design solutions are absolutely necessary. First of all, the wing must have a high sweep angle. Otherwise, serious problems with air resistance and aerodynamic heating arise. The narrow fuselage must accommodate fuel reserves, engines, and crew. The optimal way to achieve this goal is to combine the wing and fuselage, resulting in a characteristic triangular integrated shape, similar to what Chris observed. Thus, as a result of these observations, the first photographs were taken in Amarillo, Texas, where the instrument control post of the United States Military Department is located. This occurred on the 23rd of March, 1992. The witness of the events recalls, "I was here in my office when the house was shaken by a strong sonic boom. I have heard sonic booms many times and could not confuse them with anything else. But that sound continued. It was a deep tremor that you feel with your entire body. The window panes were shaking, and it was then that I saw the airplane flying over the house at an incredible speed." He grabbed the camera, fully aware that he was witnessing something unusual, especially judging by the contrail. "It was the most unusual thing. None of the known airplanes leave such a trail." He described the trail as if donuts were strung on a rope, and the sound of the engine was unique. "It is a very deep rumble, a pulsating roar, as if the heavens are splitting apart with a crack. You feel it more with your body than you hear it. It is a completely special, astonishing sound. The contrail in the shape of strung donuts has been noted around the world, and these frames are being shown for the first time. They were filmed with an amateur video camera from aboard a transatlantic passenger flight. It is very hard to hide an airplane like Aurora. Such a contrail and the characteristic sound of the engine are signs of a ramjet engine with external combustion. This type of engine is absolutely necessary to achieve hypersonic speeds. According to testimony, Aurora can fly at a speed of 8,500 kilometers per hour, which corresponds to 8 times the speed of sound, and can reach any point on the globe in 3 hours at an altitude of up to 128 kilometers. Research on the Aurora project continues and is not closed. In my opinion, all the facts point to the existence of a hypersonic aircraft program. Nevertheless, as with all black projects, the existence of Aurora is still officially denied. Despite this, anyone can fly alongside it in a computer game. The story transitions to the second part, where it discusses that the test ranges for Aurora are located in Dreamland Groom Lake, in the Area 51 nuclear test site in Nevada. Rumors circulate that something even more secretive is being tested in Area 51, a captured alien spacecraft. It is in Dreamland that all those who believe the government is hiding the fact of contact with extraterrestrials focus their attention. This could become the biggest sensation in history. From a remote mountain peak, one person is observing Dreamland. I am here, on the peak of Tikaboo, 40 kilometers east of the base. The mountain is approximately 2.5 kilometers high, and this is the last place of public oversight over this government facility. I am here because I believe it is necessary to do this, as someone must keep an eye on those who design new types of aircraft. He continues, everyone wants to see the base that does not exist, and I am no exception. The fact that it is right in plain sight is a personal challenge for me. I want to know what is happening there. Here, you feel like Sherlock Holmes. There are all sorts of clues, but how do you piece them together? The base itself is right there. It is no different from the others. It resembles a psychological test with ink blots. People react to this ambiguous image according to their worldview. Some perceive it as symbols of conspiracies, believing that a world government is hidden at the secret base. Others think that lost children from all over the world are brought here. Some see only black projects, while others are convinced that aliens are here, making contact with our government. There are also those who send them messages, and all of this is in the same spirit. Stories about UFOs are as diverse as the people who come here. This belief is based on the claims of one person who asserts that there were 9 flying saucers or discs in total. In Rachel, Nevada, with a population of just over 1,000 people, locals have observed numerous strange objects over the Dreamland Mountains. Here, on our planet, there are indeed craft shaped like saucers. One witness shares his experience. I have seen many strange objects, just chains of lights, dancing lights. They come together and suddenly disappear. He is convinced that flying saucers or extraterrestrial craft may visit Earth. I am sure that aliens must have visited Earth. Some of them may have extraterrestrial origins from another planetary system, from another star. This is something from deep space. I think it is quite possible. Somewhere underground they must have a base. There is too much advanced technology that cannot be explained. Perhaps we are dealing with a transition between dimensions. Of course, the government knows all about this. We are not alone in the universe. Besides Groom Lake, there are also Pappas Lake and Zone C4, which are also considered likely bases for flying saucers. Bob Lazar, a former engineer who worked at the National Laboratory in Los Alamos, claims that he was flown from Las Vegas to Groom Lake, then put on a bus and taken to Zone C4. We drove inside, the hangar door opened, and there was a flying saucer. I went out, was led past, and ordered to go straight ahead, not looking around. It was something like an intellectual duck, because there was an incredibly interesting object there, but I got the impression that it was made by human hands. Lazar recalls, I even laughed to myself that this explains all those ridiculous cases of UFO sightings. In reality, we built them ourselves. They are undergoing tests, and everyone thinks they are flying saucers from another planet. He also noted that on board one of the saucers was a painted American flag. A funny touch. Later, Bob learned that the saucer had extraterrestrial origins. I was allowed inside, and it immediately became clear to me that the saucer was not made by humans because everything inside was very small. Of course, it was never intended for a human. He found out that they were actually engaged in reverse engineering, trying to figure out how this craft was built, which in his opinion proves that it was not created by us. The disc itself had 3 levels. On the upper level, it was not operational. The entrance was on the middle level, and on the lower level were gravity amplifiers and a passage to the bottom part of the craft. When you are inside, a very unpleasant feeling arises. There are no instrument panels, no switches. Only 3 seats protrude from the floor. The reactor and gravity amplifiers are located below the rest of the propulsion system, and that is almost all that is inside. Bob Lazar was interviewed by a local television reporter, once again raising the topic that some call the cosmic Watergate. Rumors about Dreamland have been circulating in Nevada for many years. Brief mentions in newspapers, references to secret programs, and sometimes to alien technologies attract the attention of ufologists. They claim that there is a secret base in Nevada where, in their opinion, UFOs should be sought. Steve Douglas, a UFO witness and camera operator, began to seriously engage with these issues in 1987. In 1989, he met Bob Lazar, who told him his incredible story. If even some of its claims are confirmed, it could become the biggest sensation in human history. Douglas wonders, is there confirmation of Lazar's story? Is there evidence of his previous activities? For television and for himself, the main indicator of trust in Lazar has always been Los Alamos. If Lazar really worked there on secret projects, it could confirm his involvement in other secret sites in Nevada. As a test of Lazar's truthfulness, Douglas suggested that he take a trip to Los Alamos and demonstrate his connections. Lazar agreed. When they arrived there on the weekend, some of Douglas's team members were in the laboratory, and Lazar indeed guided them through various facilities. He navigated the maze of laboratories with confidence, which impressed Douglas as it raised questions about how he could know where everything was if he had never been there before. However, at Los Alamos, they refused to cooperate from the very beginning. Year after year, Douglas was unable to obtain confirmation of whether Lazar had ever worked there. It remained a mystery why they had no information about a person who had worked there just a few years ago. Douglas interviewed people who had worked with Lazar, and all of them claimed that he was indeed a physicist and had participated in secret projects. But where was the documentary evidence? Douglas believes that someone might have tried to hide any information about Lazar's life so that as few people as possible would believe his words. In the early days at the secret base, Lazar was under guard and read introductory documents. From these materials, it became clear that the government had detailed information about extraterrestrials, and the spacecraft had been in their possession for a long time. It seemed they had been working on it for at least 2 years, but it could have been 20 years. One day, when Douglas entered the hangar, he saw open doors and numerous ships that looked completely different from one another. He was told that their power sources and propulsion systems were identical. He noted that one of the craft looked as if it had been hit by a projectile while it was standing on its edge, and he speculated that some of the craft were not operational. There were a total of 9 flying saucers. George Knapp convinced a television studio to arrange a polygraph test for Lazar. Douglas asked him whether he had seen an anti-gravity engine in action. Lazar replied, no. 2 independent operators conducted 4 separate tests, and the results turned out to be inconclusive. Lazar passed 2 tests and failed 2. One of the operators still cannot come to terms with what he heard. Douglas observed all the minor signs and body language of Lazar. He looked him straight in the eye, showing no signs of concern and not averting his gaze. Douglas asked the same question several times, and the answer remained unchanged. After conducting the test, during the night he experienced intense emotional turmoil, which, as he admits, changed his outlook on life. The first test began, and the results met expectations. However, as it turned out, Bob Lazar did not perform very well on it. He reacted to questions related to the case significantly more strongly than to control questions designed to detect deception. These control questions cause discomfort and anxiety in a person when they answer them. One such question was, "Have you ever seen a craft shaped like a flying saucer leaving Area 51? This question was asked of him 2 or 3 times. The next set of questions concerned more technical aspects, such as the gravity amplifier, the antimatter reactor, and the power plant device. During the test, while observing the graphs, the tester suddenly realized that Lazar was probably telling the truth. Even now, he gets chills when he recalls how Bob Lazar described the operating principle of the ship's reactor. Although the details of the device remained inaccessible, the general principle was clear. The reactor was breaking down a very heavy but stable element that does not occur on Earth. This element was placed in the periodic table under the number 115. It created a gravitational wave and electrical energy that propelled the craft. The gravity amplifiers located on the ship enhanced this wave and shifted it out of phase, disrupting synchronization. Then, this wave was emitted from beneath the craft's hull. The Earth and other objects also emit their own gravitational waves, while the craft produces an opposing wave that creates lift. This craft does not produce fire, smoke, or compressed air, nothing that we are accustomed to associating with the movement of objects. It was a propulsion system based on field interactions. Field interactions can be demonstrated using 2 magnets. Opposite poles attract, while like poles repel. Lazar claims that his craft utilizes gravitational attraction and repulsion in space. Using earthly materials and advanced technologies, we cannot even remotely recreate any of these systems. There existed a reactor based on complete annihilation, where matter and antimatter react. Humanity has not yet approached this problem. We know that in principle it is possible, having created reactors that operate on the fission of matter. We are trying to create reactors based on fusion that would generate energy just like the sun. But the idea of an antimatter reactor with 100% efficiency remains unattainable. And here it is before us. Not just a functioning model, but a genuine specimen that one person can lift and at the same time produces more energy than an entire nuclear power station. This technology not only surpasses ours, it is something incredible. Did Bob Lazar work at Area 51? We have no direct evidence. Is he a certified scientist? Is what he claims in his interviews true? The lie detector tests turned out to be inconclusive. Meanwhile, an investigation conducted by Tom Mayhout from California revealed numerous inaccuracies in Lazar's statements. However, at the beginning of his research, he found Lazar's explanations convincing. About 3 years ago, he connected to the internet and stumbled upon the story of Bob Lazar, which seemed thrilling to him. The way Lazar spoke about it created an impression of truthfulness, and the many astonishing details in his account literally captivated him. He even woke up several times in the middle of the night, believing in the plausibility of this story. The first clue that everything began to unravel concerned Lazar's claim that he studied at the California Institute of Technology and that all mentions of him had been erased. A resident of the nearby area decided that this was his chance to try to find any trace of Bob Lazar at the college. He believed that the most reliable way to achieve this would be to review all the yearbooks of the college for 10 years. With diligence, he studied page after page in search of a photograph or mention of Lazar. Although he allowed for the possibility that someone could have deleted archival data, altering the college yearbook would be extremely difficult. However, despite all his efforts, he found nothing. This made him wonder. Perhaps Lazar was indeed a certified physicist, but for some reason did not want it to be known where he was from. As a result, suspicions arose that Lazar might have fabricated the story about his education at the California Institute of Technology. Despite this, his account continued to seem plausible. Lazar claimed to have a university education but could not document it. Speaking about Lazar, the interlocutor noted that he is not the first to lie about his education to get a job. However, the only document he could provide was a certificate of completion of electronics courses. A person with such a level of education could not hold responsible positions in companies like Fairchild Industries and then at Los Alamos. The interlocutor emphasized that Lazar must have received his education somewhere, as entering his home and seeing what he does with computers. It is impossible not to notice his intelligence and education. But where could he have obtained it? He wondered if, for example, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology could have deleted its archives. Although Lazar could not name any professors or students, the interlocutor questioned whether such a well-known institution could have done this, considering that they received millions of dollars from the Department of Defense and had previously collaborated with the CIA on matters concerning flying saucers. He believed it was possible. Lazar confirmed that he was fired after a serious violation of security protocols. The interlocutor recounted that the craft he worked on was often tested in flight, mostly on Wednesdays. These crafts never went beyond the atmosphere. They were barely lifted above the mountains. He noted that they were something like a reward that had just begun to be used, and they did not want to lose them. He had a testing schedule, day and hour. On one of those days, when he was not working, he invited several friends to see the crafts with their own eyes. Lazar claimed that they saw a bright green light, and the alien ship moved along trajectories inaccessible to any ordinary airplane. Despite being 15 kilometers from the base, security was on high alert. At one point, relaxing, they were detained. The next day, when he was supposed to report for work, he was seized and interrogated at the Air Force Base north of Las Vegas. There was a conflict between him and the military. They threatened him with weapons, shouted, and nearly resorted to physical violence. The threats concerned not only him, but also his wife. Soon after that, information about his previous work and the places he had visited began to disappear. He started to worry that the same could happen to him. Realizing that he needed to act, he decided to approach local television stations. He believed that if he appeared in the news, they would not be able to make him disappear without a trace. This appearance became a way for him to ensure his life. He claimed to have seen 9 flying saucers of extraterrestrial origin. After Bob Lazar made his story about spacecraft public, he was arrested and charged with pimping. He managed a brothel in Las Vegas, and when he recounted his involvement in this illegal activity, his interlocutor, who worked in the government, felt as if his entire professional career flashed before his eyes. The interlocutor was deeply upset, as he had created a computer system for the local brothel that increased its efficiency, and formally, it was illegal. However, according to him, no one had been prosecuted under that article in Nevada since the beginning of the century, and this was the only case. He noted that the presence of FBI agents and other plainclothes individuals at the hearings was likely a way to instill fear. The interlocutor expressed confidence that the process was viewed as a means to discredit Lazar. He also mentioned that Lazar had omitted how he accessed the state vehicle registration database in search of undercover agents, and it was no surprise that the police pursued him with utmost vigor. "We all know that smart people sometimes do foolish things," he remarked, adding that even if Einstein had been arrested for driving under the influence, it would not have reflected on his theory of relativity. In his opinion, Lazar was a rebel and an extrovert who loved automatic weapons and staged illegal fireworks. However, that did not mean he could not work in the places he claimed. The interlocutor acknowledged that many would not believe Lazar, but the problem lay in how to prove the contrary. If Lazar truly did not work there, it was impossible to prove with absolute certainty. And if he did work there, the documents might have been destroyed or inaccessible to ordinary people. "Bob Lazar has some strange memory," he continued. "He vividly remembers the time spent in Area S4, but cannot recall which lectures he attended, the names of the instructors, or the dates. This created the impression that his past had almost entirely faded from memory, except for the recollections of S4. On paper, Lazar appeared to be an obvious fraud, but the interlocutor had spoken with many people and had enough stories about what happened in Area 51. "I feel in my gut that he was there," he stated, although he was not sure if what Lazar described had actually occurred. Tom Mayhout found out that Lazar indeed worked at Los Alamos, but merely as a civilian subcontractor, not as a research scientist, but rather as a junior technician involved in open civilian projects. "Bob Lazar was caught lying about his past," noted the interlocutor. He added that while there is currently no documentary evidence, it might be worth recalling Einstein's words. "He who lies in little things cannot be trusted in great ones." He continued that work continued for some time after his statements in the 1990s, but regarding what is happening now, he knew no more than anyone else. "What should we believe?" he pondered. "We have astonishing testimonies." The material of the craft was something like very smooth black glass. There are reliable witnesses. It was a UFO. But is there credible data? He recalled one new astonishing report. In May 1984, the command of the North American Air Defense Forces declared an alert after receiving a report of an object that had rapidly crossed Earth's orbit. However, this object was not a ballistic missile, and its name, Speedwalker, was far from war. In low Earth orbit, there was a group of satellites from the Department of Defense whose purpose was early warning of missile attacks on the United States. The sensors of these satellites were so sensitive that they detected infrared emissions even from weak sources, such as burning firewood. At 14 hours Greenwich Mean Time, one of the satellites detected a solid and hot, high-speed object rapidly moving from outer space. It flew less than 30 kilometers from the satellite and then vanished back into the vastness of space. The satellite tracked this object for 9 minutes. A top-secret report on the incident specifies the exact time and location of this event. Attached to the report is an infrared image of the object and a diagram of its trajectory. This material fell into the hands of a UFO enthusiast. Judging by where it was first detected by the orbital group, this object came from outer space, passed in front of the sensors, and disappeared back into space. This indicates that the object was likely a spacecraft as it performed a maneuver. If it had been an ordinary meteorite, it would have been pulled by Earth's gravity into the atmosphere and burned up in it. This requires energy, and that is why meteorites and space debris cannot behave in such a manner. Spacecraft such as shuttles can, but this object came from outer space. That is the point. This is documentary evidence. Telemetry from this satellite, information and data that can be studied, verified, and re-verified. Previously, we only knew about UFOs from eyewitness accounts, but now we have data from a very sensitive detection and alert system that it transmitted to Earth. It is unknown whether we will be able to unravel this mystery. Perhaps the origin of this object will remain a secret. But what kind of object could possess such capability? Some will say that it was a UFO. The question of life on other planets remains open. To assess the number of civilizations in the universe, an astronomer must take into account the rate of star formation in the galaxy, the fraction of stars that have planets, and the probability of life arising on them. Then it is necessary to calculate how many of these planets could develop civilizations, and how much time would be required for them to make their presence known. It is also important to consider that some of these civilizations may turn out to be short-lived. By multiplying all these fractions by the number of galaxies in the universe, one can arrive at 100 million. Millions of civilizations that have existed since the formation of the universe.